You've prepared your campaign. Your players are ready. Excitement levels are high. But have you done enough? Let's talk about how to be a better dungeon master on this episode of Geek Philosophy. Welcome to Geek Philosophy, where we explore our love of geeky wisdom. We post weekly updates, and don't forget to stick around to the end to hear our Geek Philosophy quote of the week. My name's Brian, and we're going to dive into one of my favorite topics and one of my ongoing quest for improvement: how to be a better dungeon master. Before we jump in, I want all of you experienced DMs to do a little mental time traveling for a sec. Think about the first game you had of Dungeons & Dragons. No, not the one you played in, but the first one that you led as a dungeon master. What did you do? How'd you prepare? Or maybe you over-prepared? Let's keep that in mind as we continue. We'll circle back to it later. For the rest of you new or mostly new DMs, I'm going to talk about 3 things that may help you up your game. And puns are always intended. First, run a published adventure. Professional campaign books have come a long way over the years. There have been classic, original, and advanced D&D modules like Keep on the Borderlands or Temple of Elemental Evil. And adventure modules were even printed in Dungeon Magazine, if you're old enough to remember that, and every month you got one. Paizo also did an outstanding job over the years of doing their adventure paths for Pathfinder. So for 5th edition, we're lucky enough to have the Wizards of the Coast adventure books like Curse of Strahd or Tales from the Yawning Portal. Keep in mind that most professional adventure books, though, are professionally developed. They were designed and published and put together by a group of experts. And I mean, just take a look at the credits. You'll see there's likely a lead designer and story designers and art directors and cartographers, and the list goes on. So if you're just stepping into your role as a dungeon master, running a published adventure may be a great way to start. You'll see how a group of experts plan their story around encounters and maps and handle treasure and a ton of things that you probably haven't considered. Then again, some of you may be thinking, Brian, I want to run my own adventures. That's why I became a DM in the first place. I hear ya. I do. I actually didn't run a published adventure until years after I had started DMing. And yes, DMing is a verb on my world. But here's the thing. I probably would have been a better DM sooner if I had run a published adventure. Even if I just run one at the beginning. It's one of the reasons that the 5th edition starter set includes The Lost Mines of Phandelver, because it shows you how to be a DM. It ramps you up into that responsibility. But I'll offer you a compromise. If you don't want to run a published module or adventure first, at least read through and study one. You'll see how they put it together and you'll be able to apply that to your own design. And a bunch of experienced DMs are also probably thinking, some of the published adventurers aren't that good. I would say you may be correct, but I believe most of them, especially these days, are really well done. There's a reason that the experienced DMs know if a published adventure is good or not, because they have the experience to tell the good from the bad. So you have to gain experience one way or the other. You might as well start with a published adventure to learn how other people do it. So in my humble opinion, it's best to start with what the game designers, I mean D&D game designers, had in mind first. Then change whatever you like, which brings me to my next point. You're the DM, change whatever you want. The biggest and maybe most underutilized tool, believe it or not, is the ability to change it on the fly. Is the encounter much easier than you had planned it to be? Harder than you planned? Players take things in a completely different direction from what you had planned? That's probably going to happen more often than you want. Change it on the fly. I hear some of you saying, but Brian, that's easy to say, but how do I actually change it on the fly? Are you giving me some type of bait and switch YouTube advice where you just say something really vague and sounds cool and it seemingly makes sense until I try to put it into practice and then don't know what I'm doing? No? I'm kidding. In some ways, this advice is kind of vague because I could never speak to every individual circumstance where you have to change it on the fly. So I'll give you some specific examples, but you're going to have to extrapolate from there as a DM. That's part of the job, right? You have to take these examples and go, oh, maybe I would do it different from that, which is you changing my advice on the fly, by the way. So let's go back to the first one. Is the encounter too easy and the players are walking right through it? Add an environmental feature on the fly. This could be a thunderstorm, or an earthquake, or a swarm of locusts, whatever. Call for disadvantage on the rolls of, all your players' attack rolls, or ability checks, or saving throws, or concentration checks, whatever. You don't even have to explain why, for example, the storm showed up. It could be a mystery, but you have to make sure you have a strong explanation for it later, should the players want to investigate, because it has to make sense for the story. The players will see right through it if you present it like it's just an afterthought. So here's an example of how I might work it into an actual game. Before Melwinden, the party's druid, takes her next action in the initiative order, I say something like, Melwinden, I'd like you to roll a nature check with advantage. The difficulty class, by the way, doesn't matter at all. You have an immediate and intense feeling that something in the natural world is about to happen. Something unexpected and consequential, and it's coming soon. This puts it into the player's hands. They've discovered something in the middle of the battle, and it makes it less of a, I'm just throwing it in there because the encounter you're going through is way too easy and I need to make it harder. So then you can call for your disadvantage rolls and things like that. Okay, so what if the encounter is too hard and you're worried about a total party kill? For all of you that are new, also known as a TPK, which means basically all your characters die in the encounter. We don't want that. Well, sometimes it's fun, but anyway, we don't want that, especially when you're starting out either as a player or a DM. Maybe you chose the wrong bad guys for the party's level, or maybe you threw too many at them. It's okay, it happens, and we learn as we go. So here are a couple of really easy options. You can decrease the bad guy's armor class. Making it a little easier to hit the bad guys keeps the intent of the encounter, but it tones it down so it's closer to what you had planned for the characters. Another easy way, when you don't even really have to worry about when you do this as far as how late in the encounter, is to decrease the bad guy's hit points. The players don't know what the hit points were to start with, so it's much less noticeable when you do it this way. And these are your monsters and villains, by the way. They have whatever hit points and abilities and special powers and hair color that you want them to have. It does not have to match the adventure book or the monster manual or even the published module that I talked about earlier. These are your ogres, not anyone else's. As a point of caution, whatever you do, don't have non-player characters or NPCs arrive and just save the day. It takes the game away from the players, and I've made this mistake before and instantly regretted it. You can actually just see it on your player's face when they feel like they just got that taken away from them. So what about that example of the players go in a completely different direction than you planned? By the way, this is going to happen all the time. This can actually be one of the best things that can happen to your campaign, if you see it in the right light. If you see that the players take the game in a reasonable and appropriate for the story and fun direction, why are you going to fight it? Just go with it. It's their game too. So you have a murder mystery scenario that you've been working on, and the players are going to be investigating that. You've planned the true villain, and you've left clues, and you think you might have even made it too easy and obvious for some of the examples that you gave and some of the clues to show up. And then the players all think someone else did it. Well, crap. It's okay. First, is it absolutely necessary for the villain to be the one that you planned? If so, no worries. Maybe the person that the players guessed is like an underling of the big bad evil guy. Or does it make sense that it could be the player's guess? If so, change it on the fly. You're the only one who will know that it changed. Don't be too stubborn to accept this gift. They will think they did a great job working out all the clues and may even think that you did an amazing job at putting together this murder mystery. Before we get into the final tip, let me just say there are tons of ways that you could change things on the fly. And I know that many of you have your own geek philosophies on this topic. So if you have your own favorite change it on the fly moment, share it in the comments below so we can learn from it and steal it for our own campaigns. Okay, third tip, don't change too much. Okay, Brian, your geek philosophy is starting to sound a little contradictory. Well, yes, but as a great Jedi once said, only a Sith deals in absolutes. The key here is to kind of remember that if the players may take the story in a direction that you didn't plan for, and you can't think of something on the fly, that would make the session work out for everyone. And when I mean work out for everyone, I'm saying it's fun and everybody's getting along and everybody's having a good time without feeling as if all their ideas aren't valid. But what do you do if you can't think of something to change it on the fly? And when they want to take it that way, first, you have to acknowledge that the players came up with a great idea. Don't make them think that they're screwing something up because they want to do something different. Let them know that you didn't think of this and it's something that's valid and that, man, this is a great idea, but you didn't plan for it. And you might need a little bit more time to prep. You want to take them in this direction, but you need some time to get it together. If they're okay with postponing the game until you've had a chance to prepare for the new direction that they want to take it in, then awesome. That's it. Press pause, ask for a little time, run the encounter with the new way that you planned for. It's a great way of making sure people stay happy and the game keeps going. The key here is finesse. It'll take practice, but it'll also ensure that everybody has fun. But here's a small caveat. Sometimes they might say, you know what, let's go with the original plan because they want to play. And as long as everybody's okay with that and they don't feel as if their ideas were swept under the rug, no worries. Continue the game as you originally planned. Okay, experienced DMs. I want you to think about your first game, that one that you did and planned for and prepped for. Would you have found some of these helpful? Or would you have given yourself, if you had a little wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey machine to go back and say, hey, this is what you should do to prep for your first game, would you have given them these same tips or something different? I ask because no matter how many years I've been doing this, I'm learning too. And if you know some other ways that you could help us all improve as DMs, then let us know in the comments. So to see how I put all of this into practice, you may want to check out our live stream campaign. It's going to be starting soon, or it has already started, depending on when you're watching this. This is very much a regular D&D campaign for my players. The goal is just to have fun playing the game. It's not necessarily intended to be an entertainment live stream like many of the others that are on there, although that being said, if you enjoy watching, that's a bonus. I'm considering this a teaching campaign for everyone that's watching. I'll draw attention to any teachable moments, and I'll be posting behind the screens videos to show how I put some of these things into practice or how I change things as I'm going along through the campaign, because inevitably we're gonna have to change things on the fly. So make sure you subscribe and turn on the notifications to get the latest updates. If you liked this video, you may want to check out the one we have about character backgrounds versus player backgrounds. I think you'll find that one pretty interesting as it relates to this as well. In the spirit of being a better DM, I'd like to leave you with a few words of geek philosophy from the great Jean-Luc Picard. Things are only impossible until they're not.